controversy is not going away. It is gaining traction. It is gaining momentum. It is gaining momentum in the courts. And so you have Chris Matthews, who's finally saying, look, guys, I've been taking heat on this issue now for the last couple of years.
And good morning. It's 2:30 after the hour, 7:02 Thursday morning, 6th morning of January. I'm Peter Boyles, the dirty 6:30, 51 the high today, 50 Friday, 42 on Saturday. If you go to our website, khow.com, you will see this man's video, Brutally Honest. Please say good morning. And it's interesting what's happening in the alternative media sources where more of us are showing up. Jeff Kuhner is our guest. Jeffrey, good morning. Welcome to Denver. Welcome to the show.
Good to be with you, Peter.
Hey, man, a little bit about your background and yourself. And my contention is now, yesterday we had Jack Cascio on, right down the line, this young kid who works out of New York, Aaron Klein. There is a list of people, alternative media people, who are bringing the truth forward, or at least the questions forward, about the eligibility of Barack Obama. And you have become part of that. We have hooked up with you, Andy Martin, and others. So first of all, something of your background. Your video is up, Brutally Honest, khow.com. Tell us about yourself.
I'm a columnist at the Washington Times. I was the assistant national editor for many years. I'm a permanent fixture in the Times here in Washington, D.C. I'm also the president of the Edmund Burke Institute, which is a major conservative think tank.
Sure.
And essentially, my argument has just been, for the last couple of years, consistently, just show us the birth certificate. This can clear up everything. I mean, and the problem, Peter, is this, is that the people that I talk to here in Washington, D.C., and I talk to a lot of people, both liberals and conservatives, especially those in the media, privately at cocktail parties or wherever I meet them at, will admit to me in private that they believe that there is a serious potential constitutional crisis here. Many of them admit in private that they have serious doubts about Obama. They know something is wrong with his birth certificate, and here is why. Because for the last 2 years, he has been dogged by this issue. People keep asking him, release the birth certificate. Not only does he not release the birth certificate, this is the key point, he has spent over $2 million to prevent his opponents, the so-called birthers, from having him compel him to release his birth certificate. Now, the question I have for everybody is a simple one. When I applied for a job at the Washington Times over 10 years ago, I'm originally born in Montreal, Canada. They asked me for my birth certificate. No problem. I showed it. When my wife and I are in the process of adopting a child, they want my birth certificate. No problem. Why is the President of the United States exempt from proving his constitutional and legal status? And the fact that the mainstream media, and especially the establishment conservative media, I'm talking about Fox News, the Wall Street Journal, National Review, I could run down the list, whose job it is to hold our leaders accountable, that they have failed to pursue this story, is to me a scandal of the highest proportion.
You said it better than I can say it, and I've been saying it for 3 years. But it must come to a head, Jeff. I mean, I say this all the time, history has a number of lessons. This comes directly from the Durants, and one of them is, in a paraphrase, there is always a reckoning, that the reckoning is coming.
Well, I mean, this is the thing that I find frankly shocking, is that when I talk to people here in D.C., as an example, I have to be very careful because a lot of my conversations I have are off the record. People tell me a lot of stuff in confidence. A senior editor at a very liberal media outlet. Let me just leave it at this. I sat down, we had a nice dinner, good steak, we were chatting, and I said, look, what do you think of Obama's birth certificate? And he says, let me tell you the truth, Jeff. He's hiding something.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
What he's hiding, we don't know. Now, the rumor, here's the suspicion in Washington, which I think, frankly, I buy this, that on his birth certificate, it states his religious identity.
Muslim.
Muslim. We know his father was a Muslim. We know his stepfather was a Muslim. We know that it was very common practice at that time to list someone's religious identity or affiliation. The theory is that will be listed as a Muslim, and he is politically tremendously embarrassed. He does not want that to come out. Now, that's the theory from this liberal editor. So I pressed, and I said, well, hold on now. Mm-hmm. You're sitting on a potential Watergate story. Mm-hmm. If you honestly believe this, you will win a Pulitzer Prize, and it will make your career. And this is what he said to me, and I'll never forget this. And this captures the mentality here in Washington, D.C., especially among the media sycophants here in the city and in New York. He said, Jeff, you don't understand. If we pursue this story, and it turns out that, for example, his religion is Muslim, or God forbid he was not born in the United States, if it turns out to be true, we have a constant legal crisis on a proportion and a level we have never seen in this country. Everything that he has passed will be deemed by extension, ipso facto, illegitimate both legally and constitutionally. And not only that, he said, this is the part that we've talked about with my editors, and this is what I fear. African Americans have endured a lot for 4 centuries, and now they have one of their own in the White House. They will not accept that he is somehow constitutionally or legally illegitimate or unauthorized to occupy the office. They will see this, whether it's true or not, as a racist witch hunt by Middle America.
No, I've heard that so many times in 3 years.
And you will see, and the conclusion is this, you will see a civil war in America. This is their thinking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Peter, what we're looking at here, I think, is the mother of all stories. And as a member of the Fourth Estate, it is my obligation to pursue the truth.
Wow.
And so this is why I've been pursuing this issue. And I can tell you this, I guarantee you, people in the White House, people close to the Obama, people close to the Hillary camp, don't understand why he has not released his birth certificate.
I agree. It's 8 minutes after the hour. You can see this video. It's powerful. KHOW.com. This is who I hoped he would be. Jeff Kuhner is with us. If the truth got out about Obama, would there be civil war? For 3 years, I have chased this story with the help of wonderful people like you, Corsi, Martin. I give you a list of guys, Jack Cashill, the list goes on, Aaron Klein. There are people who continue to come forward. One of the things that I'm fascinated about is some of the local columnists here that used to write and make snide remarks about the so-called birthers. They've ceased to do it. Chris Matthews, as you point out in the opening of your video that we played, Chris Matthews the other night on television. And then the most recent one, and this is what I asked Cascio about yesterday, is the governor of Hawaii. I've been calling him Abercrombie and Snitch. Wanted, when he was before he took office and when he took office in Hawaii, he was going to torpedo these birthers. It was his number one, his top priority. That was in the Chicago Tribune, his top priority. Then he becomes the governor a month. Now, he's been governor now 1 month. The president and his family go on a Hawaiian vacation, and now his spokeswoman, Donella Dela Cruz, issued this statement last week. He had a friendship with Mr. Obama's parents, which no one believes, because he claimed he saw the baby at social events. And so there's personal pressure on hand. Dela Cruz said, is it going to be done immediately? No, she said, the first thing on our list is the economy. What do you think happened with the Obama vacation to Hawaii vis-a-vis Governor Snitch?
I mean, I can tell you this. It's an open secret here in D.C. Abercrombie is somebody who owes his election, his very political office, to Obama, and now he's trying to walk the plank. He's basically trying to take a bullet for the president. So he comes out with this absurd press conference where he expects us to believe that when he was a very young man at the age of 20, he knew the Obama's parents. He was actually, he claims he was present at the birth.
Now he doesn't claim that anymore.
Of course. I mean, it's almost, literally, I mean, Peter, it's so ridiculous.
I agree.
It's almost as if a baby was born in a manger.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a star. Followed it.
Swaddling clothes.
To our liberal Messiah.
No, I agree.
And so, he had to obviously back away from that. And the problem is this. They can spin all they want. A very simple point that they just cannot rebut is this. Show us the birth certificate.
Sure. Or anything else.
Anything, but just show us the birth certificate.
And now here's the next part of this is the silence of the lambs, the silence of the Hawaiian governor. Now, I asked this of Cascio yesterday, and I got a break. We'll come back. I want to keep you as long as I can. I asked Cascio yesterday, I said, is anyone sitting in the boardrooms at the Tribune or the LA Times, New York Times, that said, Remember in December when the governor said he was going to torpedo those birthers? You know, he told us that. We ran it as a front page story, and now he's gone mum. Do you think that's happening in the Tribune editorial offices? What are your thoughts, Jeff?
Well, I mean, look, I can tell you this. I know people in the media, they're very afraid of this story on the birth certificate.
Oh, I know they are.
They're deliberately covering it up.
I agree to that.
They have done everything possible. Look, even the word, even the lexicon, I've argued this before, birthers,
Yep.
As if they're flat earthers.
No, I agree.
They are constitutionalists. They are simply demanding one simple thing.
But I guess let me. I'm hitting my spot here. I got to take a break for traffic. But are they sitting in the offices of the Trib and the Times and asking, "Gee, what happened to that Hawaiian governor story?" You can see this man's video. It's powerful. KHOW.com is our website. If the truth got out about Obama, would there be civil war? It's Thursday. Let's help you get to work. 6:30 KHOW traffic or Susan. It's 18 after the hour, 7:18, 630 KHOW, Denver's talk station. Our website, KHOW.com, has the brutally honest is the video. Our guest is Jeff Kuhner. If the truth got out about Obama, there would be civil war. We were talking off air. There has been, and we played, and I remember the morning after it happened, the Chris Matthews hardball, when he says, "Why don't they just show the birth certificate?" And there is a theory running around on the internet, and because you're close to the story, that he's doing that with intent, because it's been no secret that he's not been the biggest Obama fan in the world, but he certainly is a big Hillaryite. What is he being a stalking horse here?
Well, what I can tell you this, Peter, with absolute certainty. The Clintons have been leaking damaging information on Obama and his administration throughout his entire presidency. They're the ones, in fact, that are one of the most reliable people to go to if you want damaging information. I know this because they leak to me, and I know they leak it to a lot of my friends and my contacts. The Clintons believe that Obama is the usurper-in-chief. He derailed Hillary from what she thought was her presumptive right to be the next president of the United States.
Did you read Game Change?
I thumbed through it.
Well, it's a great book, but it's precisely that. She before the first primary, she had a team out selecting her cabinet. That's how sure she was.
Oh yeah, no, it was. Peter, it was a spectacle here in D.C. I mean, the arrogance from the Clinton campaign, and they see themselves as a government in exile, and they are now looking to come back. And they see a weakened president. They see him now having lost the House, lost huge numbers in the Senate, with a very, very stagnant economy. They now sense blood in the water. So they have been leaking to as many people as they can, and they know the birth certificate is his Achilles heel.
Yep.
And, Peter, the issue I think that I find stunning is this. It goes beyond the birth certificate. Obama's health records.
Yes.
Obama's student records.
Yes.
His college records.
Yes.
All of this remains sealed.
Why?
And, the theory in Washington is that there is going to be very, very embarrassing information. Obama admitted that he used cocaine when he was young.
Mm-hmm.
He claimed it was just once or twice. In fact, we're probably going to find out if the health records are released. It probably was much more extensive than he claims.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the one that I think frightens everybody. When, as a young man, he traveled to Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
Pakistan was then an Islamist state. It was very different then than it is today. To get a visa into that country would have been extremely difficult. So under what visa and passport did he travel?
Yeah, we have pursued that, and it wasn't illegal to go. It was ill-advised to go. In that time frame, North Vietnam, Cuba, a handful of places where North Korea where really you can't go. But the interesting thing about that story is he made a speech in San Francisco talking about when he made that trip with his, by the way, roommates from Colombia who were both, I believe, Pakistani Muslim young men, that he went to Indonesia to visit his mother before he went into Peshawar But the timeline suggests that at this time, Stanley Ann Soturo had left and she was back on the Rock, and in fact had divorced Lolo and was back in Hawaii. So for him to say he went to Jakarta to visit her was impossible. She was in Hawaii. Did he, as some people, and I call this, and this is overdone here for people listening to the show, but I call this Roswell, because, anybody can have anything they want to say about what happened at Roswell or didn't happen at Roswell because there's never been anything released. Mm-hmm. And so did he, in fact, go to Jakarta to get his passport that Lolo Soturo got him as a boy and travel back into Pakistan as a Muslim?
That's, I think clearly that's one of the reasons why they're hiding this.
Sure.
And to me, the other point is this, Peter, is that if you look at his student aid records,
mm-hmm. Which you can't see,
did he apply for foreign aid, mm-hmm. or did he apply as a foreign exchange student,
sure.
or a foreign student? Yeah. Because we know he had an Indonesian passport.
Well, I'm sure he did. No, actually, he traveled on his, one time, back in the day, he could travel on his mother's passport. That's no longer allowable. But then this other third name shows back up. But we do see it means Francis of Assisi. And we see two different schools that Lolo has put him in, and they never released this. This was done by private investigators. And he puts this kid in school in Indonesia as Barry Soturo, Muslim Indonesian. But he's a little kid. So what say-so does he have in that? Nothing. But when he, for instance, gets into Occidental, in which those records are all hidden because none of the Occidental colleges, who did he say he was when he applied to Occidental? And when he goes into Columbia, and I'm told this, I couldn't have gotten an Ivy League school with a gun to my head, but to be a second-year student at Occidental, to get into Columbia, into an Ivy League school, was a virtual impossibility unless, and again, this is the time frame where, they're looking for diversity. They'll do anything to, to open the doors up to make it more diverse. Columbia is a very strict Ivy League school. So here comes a kid who is Muslim, part American, part Kenyan, perhaps even throwing the Indonesian play card in there, and he is just the diamond in the rough they're looking for. Did he say that he was those things when he applied to go to Columbia, Jeff?
This is why I think the refusal of him to release his student and health records is, to me, is a scandal. I mean, there's no other word for it.
Absolutely.
And the fact that we, the American people and the mainstream media, refuse to investigate this, mm-hmm. we have a right to know.
Sure.
This is the people's house. He is our representative.
Mm-hmm.
He is the leader of the free world. We have a right to know his background.
Mm-hmm.
We have a right to know what he did as a student, what his college records were,
mm-hmm.
what his thesis was,
yeah.
what he did, under what pretext or aliases he applied for grants or student aid,
mm-hmm.
what his health records were, and most importantly, I don't think I'm asking for too much, his birth certificate.
Of course.
So if I have to show my birth certificate to adopt a child,
mm-hmm.
if I have to show my birth certificate to get a job at the Washington Times, why can't the President of the United States simply show his birth certificate so that we can finally put this controversy to rest? And look, to me, you have to be an American, you have to be a natural-born American,
mm-hmm.
and you have to be over 35 years of age to be President of the United States. Okay, we know he's over 35 years of age. That's
Nothing
fine.
else. That's it.
But that's it.
Yeah. This man has lived for almost 50 years without leaving any footprints. There's no Obama documentation. The historians call them bona fides. No paper trail. There's nothing. Why?
Peter, the thing about Obama is this. Having covered him now for the past couple of years, speaking to people who know him very well, he is a man on the make. I believe he is one of the great frauds of our time. He is somebody who perpetrated one of the greatest myths and hoax and frauds upon the American people. We elected essentially somebody utterly unknown
mm-hmm.
in 2008. And we bought his narrative off of his two autobiographies.
Sure.
And the mainstream media carried this man into power.
I agree.
They were so desperate to have one of their own, they were willing to lie and dissemble and manipulate on his behalf.
It's fascinating. In Dreams from My Father, he tells these stories that are provable not to be true. The trip to the airport, I know, and when he addressed the school children of America 2 years ago, and he said, I know what it's like not to have a dad. I was 2 years old when my father left. That's a lie. And that's part of the nativity story. She, meaning his mom, Stanley Dunham, left and went back to Washington. And it's never been, one of the interesting things about all of this is who pays for all of this? Gramps and Toot, Toot's got a job, minor job in a bank, and Gramps is working in a minor job in a furniture store. She doesn't have any means of support, and this brings in this, and I ask you to look at it on the website, that Frank Marshall Davis theory. You look at those pictures, and you did when we were during the break. That's a bizarre series of pictures. Mm-hmm. Now, it's been done by one of our guys, Phoenix Pilot. But if you look at that, by the way, folks, you can do that too, KHOW.com. Who supports all of this? I mean, Toot and Gramps aren't rich. They don't have any money. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Punahou School is like, here in Denver, it's like Grayland Country Day. Punahou is an expensive school to go to. When he comes back from Indonesia, from Franciscus Assisi School and the other school, he goes to Punahou. All those applications are missing. Records, never been released. Neolani, never released. Why? Who paid? Who got him in? Did Frank Marshall Davis do that? Because Frank Marshall Davis had a wallet.
Well, Peter, what I've always found remarkable is that by his own admission, we only have to even, look into his background, do any investigation. By his own admission, Frank Marshall Davis was one of his closest friends and mentors. Here you have an avowed communist. Here you have a member of the Communist Party who champions a radical third world anti-colonialism, where the President of the United States admittedly says, he was my hero, he was my mentor.
There's no question about it.
He went 20 years into a church led by a radical Marxist black liberation theologist. And every step of the way, he affiliates with Bill Ayers, one of the leaders of the Weather Underground that committed terrorist acts on American soil. And yet the media gives him pass after pass after pass.
Of course.
And the question that I have for the American people is a very simple one. When you wake up one morning and realize you have a radical socialist in the White House, how could you have expected anything different? His affiliations, his past, his mentors, his teachers, his preachers, who he runs around with, that tells you everything you need to know about this man. And so now, Peter, we are living with the consequence of a great republic that now has an usurper-in-chief in the White House, somebody who is unknown in terms of his background, in terms of what he did, who is kowtowing to the Muslim world, and who is transforming America into a socialist European-style nanny state. There is a revolution taking place in front of our very eyes.
I agree. Mimi, I'm on a mark to take a break. If I can keep you, KHOW.com, you can see brutally honest Jeff Kuhner's video, as well as those pictures that Phoenix Pilot did. Make up your own mind. 6:30 KHOW traffic time, 7:30. Here's Susan. All right, 7:35, 25 before the hour. Good morning, 6:30 KHOW. Again, our website, KHOW.com, to see the brutally honest video and take those pictures that Phoenix Pilot put up, as well as the lower downtown beatings, and a bunch of stuff up there. Good stuff. Our friends at American Financing save $300 to $500 a month. Do it in as little as 2 weeks. It's money that goes to your pocket, your savings, and your future. Now, there's all kinds of refi people out there, but one of the things that I would urge people to do, if you're thinking about it, is to see somebody face to face. The phone number, 303-695-7000. American Financing. The building is at 225 in Parker Road. You work with bankers, in-house underwriters that are theirs. I mean, they're there. You meet them. 303-695-7000. You meet them. Mortgage rates that are an all-time low. Make an appointment. They'll tell you, well, tomorrow's Friday. Maybe you can do it that quickly, or do it next week. You call and say, I'd like an appointment. Okay, when can you get here? 2 o'clock Tuesday. Fine, thank you. What paperwork should I bring? There, bring this, 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 and this. And you're there. Online, AmericanFinancing.net, 303-695-7000. Our guest is terrific. His video is entitled Brutally Honest. It's on our website, KHOW.com. The contention, if the truth got out about Obama, there would be civil war. You told me a story off air, and I don't know if you're comfortable in telling it on air. But I'd ask you that first. It was a powerful story. Or would you rather not? Which, if you I really do understand.
Yeah, please, Peter, keep that. Just
Okay, no, it's
between
between me and you. Okay. So the question I ask all the time is, how does this end? Because I think, like a locomotive, these answers are coming. When people like yourself, and like I say, watching the governor of Hawaii, there's a guy that they just went to Hawaii and bitch slapped. The truth will out. Shakespeare said it. What do you think's going to happen?
That's a very good question, Peter. I mean, he's managed to suppress the truth so far. They have fought it out in the courts. They have kept the records sealed. I know that the mainstream media really doesn't want to touch this story with a 10-foot pole. Can he ride it out for the rest of his term? Maybe, probably. But I think in the end, Peter, this is where I think the truth is coming out. The American people are waking up and realizing that they have the most un-American and anti-American person to ever hold the office of the presidency. And the issue of the birth certificate, at its core, has always been one of restoring the constitutional legitimacy and authority of the office of the presidency and of this country. We want to make sure that our president has the legal, moral duty and authority to hold the highest office in the land. What we are seeing under Obama has been an assault on the very constitutional and legal pillars of this country. Obamacare was rammed down our throats against the will of the American people. He has now racked up such high deficits, such high debt, that we are now on the verge of national bankruptcy. We know that there has been rampant abuse of power and lawlessness and criminality in his administration. Voter intimidation has not been prosecuted by a civil rights division. We know that a lot of the stimulus dollars have been used as de facto political slush funds to pay off and bribe electoral constituencies. We know that the White House has engaged directly in manipulating and interfering Democratic primaries on behalf of pro-Obama candidates. So what I see is going to happen over the next year to year and a half is you are going to see more investigations by Republicans. Take this to the bank. You are going to see many scandals being unearthed. You are now going to see the Chicago way exposed for the entire American public and the world to see. And so what you're going to see happen is there's going to be a crisis of moral authority in his administration. The more they see, they have covered up for this man for 2 years. Mm-hmm. But now investigation after investigation after investigation, especially Darrell Issa and his government reform committee, you are now going to see the criminality, the lawlessness, the abuse of power that is at the heart of this man and his criminal regime. And so I think over the next 2 years, Obama's popularity is going to continue to drop like a stone. I think you're going to see Hillary potentially challenge him in 2012 if he continues to be weak. You may see another Ted Kennedy, what he did to Jimmy Carter in 1980. Mm-hmm. And so I think in the end, he may be doomed to be a one-term president. And then, once he's a one-term president, once he is swept into the dustbin of history, many people are going to ask themselves, how was this man elected to the highest office in the land and in the world? How could we have allowed this fraud, this con man, this third-rate constitutional law professor to swindle his way into the presidency of the United States? And that's when I think the truth about his birth certificate is going to come out. And I think in the end, Peter, people like you, people like me, the few brave souls that have dared to challenge the conventional wisdom, that have dared to go against the forces of political correctness, will be vindicated.
Well, the only thing that only criticism for the last 3 years is that I'm a racist for asking a question. And so I realize that now there are racist questions, which of course is idiocy. So we go down a list of things. A man has lived for almost 50 years without leaving any footprints, none. There's no Obama documentation, no bona fides, no paper trails. And yet now when you say that, as you have in the video that you've done, it's so powerful, you are a racist. Well, it's, again, the equivalent of medieval Europe, and someone says, well, the earth really does go around the sun, heretic. And eventually the truth is out. So when you look down a list of things, including one of the interesting things now is he operates on a Social Security number issued in the state of Connecticut. I don't know if you knew that. That's been our recent one we've looked at. The guy was never in Connecticut in his life. I mean, you know, his first job by what he says in his book was selling ice cream at Baskin Robbins in Hawaii. Why is he using an SS number out of Connecticut? It's a great question.
He's got multiple Social Security numbers.
No, he does. Yeah,
that's another problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just go on.
The list is incredible.
And no, you're right. And the thing about Peter, here's the thing: what do they have left? They say you're a conspiracy.
Oh yeah, sure. Or the paper, like 10 hats and black helicopters, and I've heard it all.
But when there's smoke, there's fire, so they can't really say the conspiracy theory angle anymore. So
no, they can, but that's all they got.
Now it's racism.
No, of course.
And what I debate a lot of liberals in this city when I'm on radio or television or in public forums. The minute they resort to the racist card, I know I've won the argument.
Precisely. All right, so here's one more question, and then we're going to get you back next week. Governor Abercrombie, who said he remembers seeing Barack Obama as a child with his parents at social events. When is somebody going to, and he's got to hold a press conference, and somebody's going to have some nuts and stand in that press conference and say, where was that social event? Because I guarantee you that never happened.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, everybody knows that he's lying.
Yeah.
And this is what, Peter, this is what I find most frightening. I have to tell you this as a journalist.
By the way, why don't you just stay? Stay for the hour. Hang on. Okay. Put you on hold. 630 KHOW, everyone. And Rich Wyatt and guys at Gunsmoke, I've spoken so much about them. Rich and the guys over there know their stuff. And, for instance, they recently Richard purchased one of the largest military collections available of guns and bayonets. And these guns are so rare, Rich and Bob said they'd never seen anything like it before. A friend of mine, Tim Huffman, and I went over there right before the holidays. Gunsmoke has great specials going on. And it's the peace of mind of a concealed weapons class from our friends at Gunsmoke. Beautiful, thoughtful thing for you and the family. Confidence of learning self-defense, firearms safety. A huge difference in a loved one's life. And they're doing specials right now on this. Richard is the guy. Gunsmoke's the place. Gunsmoke, 303-456-4545 is the number. 303-456-4545. The best concealed carry weapons class in Colorado. They have deals for KHOW listeners. 3 people go for the price of 2. Gunsmoke is at 9690 West 44th Avenue in Wheat Ridge. You take I-70 westbound, you get off on Kipling and head south on Kipling down to West 44th. It's about 2 lights, and make a left. Head back into the city on West 44th. Right across the street from Gunsmoke is a really old-school chopper shop, motorcycle shop called Thunderbird. You see Thunderbird, you see Gunsmoke. You see Gunsmoke, you see Thunderbird on the other side of the street. Do the best. These are the guys from Tuesday through Saturday. Nobody better. Rich Wyatt and Gunsmoke. Traffic timer, Susan. Young Americans. You remember Richard Nixon. 630 KHOW, Denver's talk station, 51 and 50. Highs today and tomorrow. It's the 6th morning of January. It's a Thursday. Just a great guest. I've watched his video. It's up on our website, KHOW.com. Brutally honest, Jeff Kuhner is with us. If the truth got out about Obama, there would be civil war. We're talking, he's a very wonderful guy. Private conversations are as terrific as his on-airs. So the so-called birthers, and I was telling you, I've jacketed it to be proofers or truthers. It's like, it's really funny. No longer are the birthers attacked by the libs and progressives in their columns. They don't do it anymore, which I think is a real harbinger of they're starting to catch on. We went through the Terry Lakin story here. Terry Lakin was from Greeley, and it was really interesting. Not one of the Denver Post, it's a total laydown, but none of even the local TV outlets. All they did was report that he was on trial the next day that he was guilty, and they all ran the identical story. The identical story, almost to the words, they ran the identical story. What I thought was interesting, and I'll bring it up with you, this guy was from Greeley. Jeffrey, why didn't anybody at the Denver Post or the local television stations send somebody to Greeley and say, what is it exactly that this guy said about the president or asked the president to do? Now, across the hall from us is the big dominant AM, 850 KOA. Their news person that evening said that Terry Lakin said that Barack Obama was born in Kenya. That was part of their report. It was a total lie. Terry Lakin never said Barack Obama was born in Kenya. But that was the kind of stuff that's being put out. But not one person ever got in the newsmobile or the papermobile and went up there and said, what is it exactly that this guy was troubled by? They don't want to see that, do they?
No, they don't. And this is what I think is, to me, ultimately the most chilling and frightening aspect of this entire story. As a journalist, I am called to be a secular priest. I often say this to people. They laugh at me. A lot of liberals laugh at me when I tell them this. It is to pursue the truth regardless of the consequences. You don't do it for money. You don't do it for fame. You don't do it for glory. And to me, this story is about the truth. It's about getting to the heart of the matter. Who is this man that occupies the Oval Office? Where does he come from? Is he constitutionally legitimate?
That's the better question, yeah.
And this to me, and this issue continues to haunt us because nobody wants to confront and face it. And Peter, I have to tell you, the most disturbing aspect of all of this is I have seen many journalists in this city get swept up in the Obama mania. I remember during the 2008 campaign, I literally felt like I was in a foreign country, like I was in some third world banana republic. I would go to rally after rally, 15, 20, 25,000 people.
Sure.
They are crying. They are wailing. They are hysterical. They are collapsing in front of me. I've seen people collapse in front of me as he speaks. He talks like some third world generalissimo, where the politics of charisma, where it's almost like a Marxist revolutionary, and the crowd is utterly mesmerized, thinking that somehow their salvation lies in this man. It was the most un-American thing I had ever seen. And to me, whenever you see any politician, I don't care, conservative, liberal, left or right, when you have people investing so much hope, so much of themselves into that person, something is seriously wrong. And instead of being objective, of being skeptical, of being detached, of being critical, I saw countless liberal journalists tell me stuff like this, quote, Jeff, he's the only hope this country has.
Oh, I've heard it so many times.
Jeff, we have to get rid of the Bush-McCain junta. I said, what?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that George Bush was a dictator? Are you telling me in all seriousness that you believe that garbage from the left about somehow the Bush-Cheney, Hitler, Halliburton?
Yeah, sure.
There were no concentration camps. People were not being murdered on the streets. There was no dictatorship that descended upon America. There was no genocide perpetrated upon the American people. What is wrong with you? But it was this kind of hysteria that swept over the entire mainstream media. And so, Peter, they have invested so much of themselves in him. Their credibility is at stake.
No, I agree.
And if he goes down, they go down.
Well, everybody, if in fact it happens and everybody says to them, why didn't you do your job? And I went back and looked. 2008, the Democratic Convention in Denver, and I've kept this. You remember they built that stage for him to speak at where the Denver Broncos play football. And it was, you couldn't get a ticket. And he comes onto the stage and he begins like this. 4 years ago, I stood before you and told my story of a brief union between a young man from Kenya and a young woman from Kansas who weren't well off or well known, but shared a belief that in America their son could achieve whatever he put his mind to. That was the beginning of the birth story. That was the speech. And they were attempting, at the time, no one had seen the Jeremiah Wright videos, they were not being paid attention to. But he went on to speak, I am the son of a black man from Kenya and a white woman from Kansas. And it went on to being 2 years of age and my father left and the rest of those stories. From the beginning, I think that certainly the newspaper here and the rest of these up and down the Front Range and across the country worked to keep that storyline alive. Do you believe that?
No, I think there's no question about it. I think one of the most appealing things for the liberal mainstream press, one of the most appealing things about Obama is his biography. his artificial, contrived biography. They love the Kenyan father, the woman from Kansas.
Right.
They love the fact that he was raised in Indonesia. They love the fact that they think he's cosmopolitan, that in some ways he's transnational, he's global, he's a statesman of the world, he's a world leader. They even like the fact that he's a partially Muslim. They love that because they think that will give him more credibility and prestige in the Muslim world. In other words, when they look at Barack Obama, they see themselves.
Sure.
They see Ivy League educated. They see somebody who puts his allegiance in the United Nations and the world community above his own country. They see somebody who is politically correct. They see somebody who is a social democrat, somebody who believes in a post-American world. So they are willing to forgive him absolutely everything because to them, politics and ideology trumps truth. This is what I've learned about the press in Washington. They are ultimately hacks for the Democratic Party, and they are ultimately idealists before being journalists. This is, to me, the most disillusioning aspect of my entire time here. There are very few genuine, honest reporters and journalists who will call it as it is. The left in this country has an agenda. If you advance that agenda, they support you. If you don't or block that agenda, they will destroy you. And they have done this since FDR, and they have continued it. They covered up for Kennedy. They covered up for Johnson.
Indeed.
They covered up for Clinton, and now they're covering up for Obama.
With Clinton, there was an impossibility with Clinton. But what I think now this focuses on, and I ask you this question, we come to the end, and again, I hope people go and look at the video, KHOW.com, for this governor in Hawaii. And I saved the Chicago Tribune headline. And this headline, there's a picture of Abercrombie, the snitch. For Hawaiian governor, discrediting anti-Obama birthers is the top priority. Under that, it says, Democrat Neil Abercrombie, who knew Obama's parents, is determined to torpedo the conspiracy theory. All right. He's been governor now for a month today. He now will not speak to the press and only talks about, his spokesperson talks about the economy. Is there going to come a moment in the Trib, in the LA Times, the New York Times, where all those stories ran, that somebody's going to look, some editor's going to look and say, I would never expect it at the Post, geez, you guys, wasn't he going to torpedo those birthers? Whatever happened to that?
Peter, they're not, and here's why.
All right.
Because when I talk to many reporters and journalists, when we have a debate, I say to them this: doesn't it bother you that maybe he wasn't born in the United States?
Or whatever the reasons.
No, I get to this point. I say he could not be born. It's a possibility he may not have been born in the United States, and their answer is, so what?
Yeah.
So
I've heard that. Yeah.
I mean, literally, that's their attitude. So what? Who cares?
Yeah.
So I mean, and why should we?
It's done, or they'll say it's already done.
Yeah. I mean, look, they've ceded their loyalty to this country. They don't care for the Constitution. They deride our founding fathers. They hate the history of this nation. So why be a stickler for something like somebody should be a natural-born citizen of the United States?
Or
why should that bother you?
Or did you run a con?
Yeah, or did you run a con, or did you misrepresent yourself, or maybe your religion originally was a Muslim, or whatever. You're keeping information from the public, because in the end, what matters is not the past or the present. For them, it is the future. What kind of a socialist utopia?
Sure, that's the ends will justify the means.
You nailed it, Peter.
We got the music. Jeffrey, I'll get you back ASAP. We now know how to find one another. I appreciate the video's great, man. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, thank you. Jeff Kuhner, we got to open lines. A lot to